Education opens the way for cultural and economic connections across our planet. Access to education liberates the minds and opens horizons for ideas. Education increases opportunities, but schooling opportunities are uneven. In richer countries, they are plentiful and only a tiny minority of people are illiterate. In the poorer countries, the opposite is true. Illiteracy traps hundreds of millions of people in the horror of absolute poverty. The tools for teaching are in short supply, and even when available, the quest for survival often forces children into the fields to work and away from the classrooms. Education is closely linked to economic development. Education allows people to raise their income. It helps them develop their abilities and talent, respond to new opportunities, and adjust to cultural and economic change. The reasons for low school attendance in the third world are many, but poverty is certainly a major one. Sending children to school means less help around the household and fewer hands to work the family farm.
People need their children on their farm. They need to ask their assistance. And so if they do not send them to school, it's not because they do not want to send their children, because they need them to farm, they need them to produce. So the school system will have to find ways and means in some sense of compensating these communities by either making the school system flexible, which means running the schools in those periods where the farming season perhaps does not affect very seriously the farmer. Sometimes maybe even having a school calendar which allows children to go in the morning and come back in the afternoon. Sometimes even allowing people to send their children, to admit their children every other year.
One of the obstacles of education is getting children to school. In the Himalayan mountains, it can be a 10-day walk to the nearest village. So the school must be brought to the children. The logistics of bringing education to the isolated areas of the mountains of Nepal are unique. Children and parents alike place the greatest priority on learning. Every effort is made, and if the building is finished before the cold of winter sets in, these children will complete a year of schooling for the first time.
If you come to the urban areas, the problem is often the inverse. You have a large number of children that want to go to school, and the number of children sometimes in the classroom becomes 50, 60, 70, 80, even 100. In those kinds of situations, a way of improving the efficiency of the school system might be either by introducing double shifting, as the children go for half a day and the other group of people come the other half a day. Sometimes by giving to the children libraries where they can go and read. And occasionally also by making sure that within the same classroom you could teach different age groups, the so-called in one room. So you could introduce a large number of varieties of techniques that would accommodate to improve the efficiency of the school system.
Education has been the driving force of human progress. To learn, to teach, to pass on knowledge. This is the engine of civilization.
Education stands out, at least at the primary and secondary level, as one of those high return activities. It also is attractive to me because it has the equity feature that the investments accumulate in the lower strata of the society and create the pressures for the democratic, pluralistic society that we want to occur in some of these countries and seems still a long ways off.
Paul Schultz teaches economics at Yale University in Connecticut.
All of our analysis of labor force data would certainly indicate that the higher educational levels are a good investment, but the primary and secondary levels reward the recipient of the education much more handsomely in the labor market. So the answer is the primary and secondary levels would seem to warrant more subsidy from the public sector and more attention from the private sector.
Yo creo que la primera prioridad de cualquier sistema educativo tiene que ser darle la educación básica primaria a toda la población, rural y urbana. Creo que eso es tan importante o más que la educación que se da a continuación en los niveles técnico y superior, por muchas razones. Una tiene que ver con la calificación del recurso humano, ¿cierto? Estos muchachos van a trabajar, tienen que desarrollar instrucciones, tienen que seguir órdenes, tienen que leer bien, tienen que utilizar maquinarias. Y para eso está dicho por muchos estudios que tienen que tener por lo menos 5 años de educación para tener la comprensión de lectura y de escritura para muchas cosas. Tal vez la inversión que llega a más cantidad de gente, la que tiene un efecto de democratizar más los servicios del Estado de la educación. Cuando se invierte en educación se está tocando a todos, a toda la población y a la más pobre y a la más apartada con un servicio. Está también la dimensión de la participación en la vida política. Es decir, comprender lo que es participar de una nación y de un Estado también requiere capacitación. Y por eso te decía que si no hay educación primaria, no tenemos la base, los recursos sobre los cuales se montan los demás proyectos de desarrollo.
Todo era amable. Todo era amable.
Flexible school systems that take into consideration the needs of the farmers such as this program in Colombia called Escuela Nueva, are very effective. Access to education for children in rural areas is particularly important because of its ultimate effect on food production. Farmers who know how to read and write are able to produce more from their land than those who are illiterate. They are better prepared to absorb new technology. They can organize and manage the work on their farms better. People in the third world come from diverse economic and cultural backgrounds, and there are no set rules to educate them. When addressing the needs of the poor, informal education is extremely important. It is a vehicle to achieve economic progress. In this case, these Bolivian women, through knitting and weaving demonstrations, are also being instructed on matters of health, nutrition, and family planning. Educational opportunities for women are all too frequently a low priority. This must change if poverty is to be defeated.
We need the political conviction that the education of women is not only a matter of deserved equality with their male counterparts or a question of social justice, which are very important, but also a tremendous step forward towards the progress of these nations because of the economic return obtained from an educated female population.
Strengthening efforts to educate women can lead not only to great strides forward for health, nutrition, and social standards in developing countries, but also to tremendous economic gains. Educated women are just too often a missing factor in the struggle of nations to develop.
Through education, women have a better chance to exercise their political and civil rights, as well as their economic and social rights, and be recognized by their own societies as key elements to induce change, to bring about change.
You need to give to your population minimum basic education. Aspect to speak the same language, to give the minimum opportunity. This is fundamental. It's fundamental. But that does not mean that countries would not develop a system to give some technical vocational education, that countries will not have some portion of their money to develop their leadership, technologists, agriculturists, engineers, politicians, economists, people with skill. What differentiates the poor from the rich is the level and the quality of skilled people. And therefore, developing countries will have also to have their skilled people.
Students from developing countries come to the universities of the developed nations. 400,000 such students are now at colleges in the United States.
If you would ask me to spot out one positive development which has occurred around the world, which has brought mankind together, it is the exchange of people, it's the travel of people from one country to the other, from one university to the other. This is a tremendous exchange of learning, of knowing each other's cultures. Now, in the process, it so happened that richer countries will offer better working conditions than the poorer countries, and therefore many, many qualified people opt to stay in developed countries. That is the negative side.
As soon as a student from the third world completes his education in a richer nation, he becomes a scarce commodity for his country of origin. And these professionals could play a very important role in improving the quality of life in their home countries. They are educated, they are part of the culture, and should be able to understand their people, their needs, better than anyone else.
It is frequently very hard to get graduates to turn down the rich opportunities offered in industrial nations and go back to their home countries, where they are desperately needed. There is also the question of how relevant their Western schooling is for the development of their own nations. A medical student from the third world, being educated in the industrialized countries, may become an excellent physician in diseases that affect the temperate zones of the world, but his training may not be relevant to the type of diseases he'll have to treat if he goes back home. Many of these universities have become aware of the problem and are making adjustments in their programs. It now becomes crucial to foreign students to select the right type of curriculum when they come to pursue a higher level education in the countries of the West.
The question, therefore, is what should one do? This has a political dimension. Essentially, the countries themselves will have to improve the working conditions of their own in their own countries, to use better educated people, and to make sure that the political framework, that the political atmosphere in those countries encourages difference of opinion, invention, creativity. On the other hand, I feel that the developed countries are also benefiting tremendously from the diversity and quality of these people coming. So I would hope that they will have to find ways of compensating the developing countries in some other way by encouraging a reverse brain drain to go back and help developing countries.
It is a bitter irony that Western aid pays high salaries to thousands of European and North American experts to work in developing nations, while such nations too often lack the means to attract their best graduates back from the West. perhaps things will be different for these children who start down the road of knowledge with a dedicated, handicapped amateur teacher, no textbooks, and a backyard for a classroom. No investment can be more valuable than an investment in knowledge. We live in an interdependent world where nations need each other for economic reasons, where fluctuations in political ideologies or economic standards of any country, no matter how small, may affect the living standards in the richer nations. Western aid and the priority attached to education by third world governments has seen a real literacy explosion over the last 25 years. The rising education levels are leading to stronger economies and rising purchasing power. The increasingly educated peoples from the third world are, for example, the greatest potential market for the world's products. In America, there are 3 cars for every 4 people. In the third world, there are 14 cars for every 1,000 people. This will change.
We have a go for main engine start. 7, 6, and we have main engine start. 4, 3, 2, 1. We have SRB ignition and liftoff.
We live in an age where technological achievements permit spatial exploration, the extension of life through medicine, and provides access to weapons with enough destructive power that, if unleashed, threaten our very existence. Education has made it possible for man to go to the moon. Surely it is possible to see that all people have a chance to learn to read and write. The destruction, darkness, and cold of an atomic winter need not occur, and will not occur so long as we see the full magnitude of the problems afflicting mankind, and so long as we work to resolve them. We desperately need to increase the understanding of the economic problems confronting the third world. But understanding and democracy will not be possible in a world filled with hunger, illiteracy, and poverty. Education is essential in order to achieve this understanding. We can be hopeful for the future when we know that tens of thousands of schools have sprung up across the landscape of the third world in recent times. The tempo of rising educational opportunities is accelerating, but more must be done. Everything we do as individuals and as nations to foster the schooling of the world's poorest children brings hope to their lives.
ระดับกูครับผิดถึงเลยอ่ะ
all these people know is what they're able to learn within their impoverished communities. The doors to wider and greater knowledge have been closed for them. They must be opened. Education offers a chance for a better world.